Hi, I'm Claudia Mann. I will show my face. Voila, here I am. You're in my studio next to Düsseldorf. I'm gonna give you a short, um, throwback on my website first, and then I show you my studio. So real stuff in 3 dimension as it's possible. It is on digital format like this, and yeah, first of all, I'm gonna go to a work which I made 2014. As you see, I'm a sculptor, and in 2014, I discovered something very important for me because I'm working on a thesis and concepts on what is sculpture, what is the first sculpture, and you might see here that I've casted the ground like here. So that was during the process. And when you entered that space, so I've lifted a plaster piece from the middle center of that space. You were part of the show, actually. You're always part of the show as a viewer, but you're standing on the ground from which on the sculpture came up from as a negative. And there's a kind of shift between what is the negative and what is the positive. And leaving the space, which means you maybe look, you have a last sight on through the window and see the piece and pass the gallery and go off on the tram, for example. And I was wondering, when does the sculpture stops to exist? So, because it's the same ground, it's just another level, you use stairs, you use the path along the street, and maybe you stop to think of this work at some moment and remember it maybe on another spot somewhere else on the world. And from that on, I started to work out this problem with the ground. So here is a work which I call Solid Arrow. It's massive material. It's a hollow, of course, casted bronze. It's not massive. And I made a wax cast out of the hole I've digged in the size of my body and much deeper than I really could exit out of the hole. So it was really sharp. So here you see the wax piece we transformed later on in bronze. And I go through some other works. So you can use, of course, my web. As you see in the first section, I try to find a way to make sculpture with the main thesis. So sculpture is not starting on the ground. It's the ground itself, which is sculpture. So, for example, here I have a silicone mold, and this time underneath there's a clay piece which I've casted, which was used for installing a work. So all the marks which I've done, yeah, so I can try to lift it a little bit. So there's really clay underneath. It's not finished yet because I need to make a plaster surrounding a form to have a form for the silicone again. So this time I make my ground for my own. So I'm not using the ground which is already existing. And this is a work which is really strictly in contact to that. So marks like my shoe prints on the work. And here I'm thinking about the starting point of sculpture. It's the hand, my hand. And these are bronze casts I've made in snow. So there are many processes in between. So I've made a hole where I put my hand, And then I transformed it through wax, which also disformed my hand in the snow and the takeout. So there are many, many movements inside. And here's another work, kind of, I'm still thinking of it. So let me share all the background stuff, because this is the size of my hat. This is a hole for my hat. And my hat is not that big as this one. So let me share my hand on it. So, but this is a form which is decided by the nature of gravity, for example. And this work is called rather der Moment. Ein Moment lang dachte ich, die Gravitation überwunden zu haben, which means that for a moment, I thought I overcome gravity. And I'm starting to work very figurative. So here are works I'm doing really recently. These are headrests, which came up from a work I did 2 years ago. The material I used is the clay I digged out by accident. So I have pallets full of clay I found. And I started to make these headrests, which came up, maybe you know them from ancient cultures like Egypt or African cultures. So some are still in use in these countries, but mine are also not really usable, but these are portraits. So you see kind of shoulder heads. So there's no, it's a kind of negative above of a head, perhaps as an ideal, but what comes out is something with a head by own. So, and this clay is really uncontrollable, as you see. So it's cracking and everything. Well, so, and just give you an overview on my works. And here I'm preparing an exhibition, which of course during Corona, I had to wait until I can do it. So the headrests are planned for it. And I want to have a space where they are surrounded. So I want them all in the wall space. And in the middle, there will be a white work I've made already, a plaster piece. And you only have maybe 1.5 meters next to the work here. So it's really sharp. And it's kind of well, it's these pieces are a kind of key between life and death, because for example, if you think about ancient Egypt, they were used to mummification, they were used to sleep on it, they were used also as a tool in the sarcophagus to place the head on a kind of position that the face is directed to a hole in the sarcophagus, and the deaf person was able to switch between lives, switch between life and death, perhaps. So it's really something I'm thinking about a lot, and about life and death. And so, but these pieces are very important to me as well. So I'm gonna put these panels on this piece, and it will be a kind of vessel standing in which you are not able to enter, actually. So maybe I try to switch over to my website again. So this is the piece I showed you already. And that was a project in Düsseldorf. So as you see, I'm working really on the spot between all urbanity, with the help of the people who were living on that spot. So you have to know that there are many junkies, many people who are passing to go to the tram. So here you see, for example, that they are helping me. So I'm asking people on the streets to assist me and to make the work. And I try to understand the next level of this, making a cast from ground and lifting it, and to show this kind of membrane, you know. Ground is not really ground. There's something underneath and there's something above. So there's always a kind of movement in between. And if I do make a cast, all the things which I found, or which the plaster wanted to have, a part of the piece, but in between there's happening really a lot. So it's a social casting as well. And I was wondering if I can address the people while doing sculpture outside, doing it not in my studio, and place the studio in the outside. But I'm still working on that. All the casts are resting in my studio and waiting for the next step. So some of them are already a new work. And as time goes by, as you see, there's so much dirt, and this is also a part. So it's not only casting the ground, the other side is also a casting of the moment. And this is the last thing I wanted to show. So voila. And Chris, thank you for the invitation and the chance to explain a little bit out of the situation. So if somebody has a question, we can go into the next step.
Martine from Amsterdam.
Hello.
Hello. When does the mold itself, do you consider it as a sculpture, or is it only the process?
Oh, I would say there are a lot of levels of sculpture. Even the tool I'm using, the wood, is also a sculpture by itself. And I would go also so far, what is sculpture when it's not the human being? It's the mirror of us. So it's a sculptural process, which is also focusing on the project. For example, on the streets, you can't dismiss or you can't ignore the potential in that the horizon is also not the ground, it's between the people as well. So, and I'm only the tool. And even I can't say I'm the neutral, a neutral point. The neutral point is what I'm doing, perhaps. So I'm also a person who is interacting, so I'm reacting. So there is no solid moment. And in that case, also, I have to say, to make sculpture is also a tool in itself. So it's quite kind of really philosophical. Bye-bye.